Hey guys, what's going on? It's DuconRed1 and welcome back to another Minecraft video. We're going to be working on developing terrain today for our fortified manor that we're going to be building over here on this plot. Now, the idea behind this episode is that we're going to get this terrain completely finished as far as texturing and as far as shaping the terrain. Shaping and texturing, that is the idea today. We're going to try to get that all figured out because it's very important when you're building something. You want to try to get the terrain done. That way you don't have a static build where the terrain is built to the build, whereas the build should be built to the terrain, if that makes any sense. It should be natural in that regard. So that's what we're going to try to do. Now obviously we're going to probably have to make some adjustments to the terrain in order to fit our plan. So at some points we may need to add on or detract from a little bit of what's going on here, but I think that we'll be able to incorporate a better understanding of what's going on if we texture and rather complete the terrain for the most part. Next episode we'll start the planning. So like I said, today we're going to be working on the palette. So this is going to be our test area. We're going to test out the general idea of the palette over here. We're going to also build something similar to this style up here so that we can make sure that whatever we use for the terrain matches the build as well. Because we are going with a limestone rich region. As you can see, we're using a lot of lighter stone in the build. So we want to make sure that there's a lot of lighter stones. Otherwise, if we say have mainly gray or darker terrain, it just would not match as well. Now obviously we're going to have some darker bits in with the cliffs and some of the terrain features, but we're going to be mainly focusing on lighter, aka whiter stones, and that's what limestone more or less looks like. It's more of a whiter, cleaner look, and that's a really neat thing behind what we're doing on this build, is making it light. I don't really see many light builds, and especially not this style in Conquest. Usually they're more dark, and so I hope that this will be inspirational to some of you. Now I'm still developing the lore for the build. There's still a lot to be done. I'm writing up some things. I'm trying to come up with a name for the manor, things of that sort, and I think it's gonna turn out pretty good. I am connecting this to Crime. For those of you that are not aware of what Crime is, it is a series that I'm doing here on YouTube. It's a very popular series. A lot of you know about it. But anyways, I'm connecting this build to Crime in the lore, so that the Lord, or one of the lords, one of the kings of Crime, knighted whoever owns this place. I called him Reynold Chatillon. Reynold Chatillon is the owner of this manor. Well, at least was the former owner. He's probably already passed on because this is a pretty developed manor at the time period that we're making this. So let me just sort of tell you my plan. I'm unsure what we're going to be doing exactly with this terrain, but my current idea is we're going to change it so the river kind of follows all the way down the side of this teardrop, all the way along here, all right? Now the river isn't going to be too wide. It's going to be maybe from, I don't know, from here to there. There's still going to be some space over here, things like that, and hopefully you guys will be able to learn something on this episode as we're going to be cutting through. Well, I don't want to ramble on too much longer. Let's go ahead and get started on this palette and try to come up with something that looks relatively nice. So right now I'm going to be choosing some textures, and then we're going to get in there and start making it look relatively similar in style to the structural architectural style that we're working on. So let's get started. So starting now, you definitely want to try and figure out what your palette's going to be. Is it going to be a lighter palette? Is it going to be a darker palette? In this case, it's a lighter palette, and so I use the marble and the diorite as the foundation block to make it, to really accentuate that light. So what I'm doing right now is I'm using a masking brush. This is a mask over stone, and it allows us to place anything above whatever we want. This, it's really helpful for stuff like crops and stuff like that. So here I'm adding in a layer of that marble, I end up not using that. I decide rather to use the marble in patches because I felt like just that looked a little too spotty and it just didn't work out as well. But I just wanted to show you the process that we go through in order to create terrain. Same thing with the dark stone. It looks really spotty at this point, so I decide not to use this later on. But the process is what gets you to the point where you're happy with your terrain. You got to figure out what style you're going to go for. So the gravel I'm adding in, the reason why I'm using gravel is to indicate places where the cliff has given way, like pebbles and rocks have all, that's just how weathering works. It chips away at the face of the cliff and then that collapses down on itself. So you always want to put grass and gravel things down there. That sort of indicates that there's been the weathering process, and also there wouldn't be much grass down there. So we're working on the foundation to our style. Now it's just a very basic kind of thing that we're going to be doing here later. But we use a lot of this sandstone, and one block that really matches it is the hardened clay. So we end up using that as the darker block in the terrain. So again here, this is another thing I really want to portray to you guys. You're always going to find where you have some kind of mess up that you figure out, instead of like trying to wing it. My suggestion to you is always try to move things around to where they would be in the best position to suit your building needs. And so I just decided to move that whole wall in, and it really helped out. So you don't want to just wing things. In my crying tutorials, I really portray just wing it, just build whatever you want anywhere. What I'm trying to tell you in this series is try to make everything make sense and really try to think about what you're doing. So building the roof and diagonal at that is not, it's semi-simple. Now you can do a world edit command in order to make your roofs diagonal, which is completely, could look really good. You just got to know how to use it. In fact, I have a video on it that you can follow. You just go over to my tips and tricks playlist over on, over on YouTube. We're here on YouTube right now. So go check that out, and you can see how to use world edit to make your roofs diagonal. It's really, really simple actually. It's just, you just got to do some fixing later on. But yeah, I'm just portraying the method and how to make the roof look more diagonal, adding in stairs and things just to make it look kind of nice. You add blocks in on the corners so that there's not those like blocks hanging out, stuff like that. And I think it turns out pretty well. But yeah, later in this video, we're going to be finishing up this terrain more or less. We're going to be getting a lot done, so definitely, guys, stay tuned. But yeah, again, quality is going to be much better in the next episode. We've just broke past 30 FPS. We are going to get 60 FPS past this episode. I had to record the rest of the episode in 30 FPS because we already started in 30 FPS, and if we did more recording in 60 FPS, it would have ended up pretty bad. So so that's that. Okay guys, so there we go. I went ahead and developed a palette that I'm reasonably happy with. This is the style that we're kind of going for. Now it's very basic. I'm definitely going to be doing some more with this. Obviously, when we're doing the main build, like this building would probably be twice as tall. There'd be normal windows in there, things like that. It'll definitely look a whole lot better. But what I wanted to mainly implement was somehow to incorporate both the lighter stone and this darker foundation stone into what's down here. So as you can see, we've matched the darker with the clay, which is in here, and we've matched the lighter with all of this diorite. So there's some diorite up there, and there's also diorite down here, so it really helps it out. And originally I did like a stripe of this marble stone all the way across, but I decided that's probably for the best not to do that because it just made it look really cheesy in my opinion. Now there's a little bit of white down here too, but the main thing that I wanted to show you guys was that there's a lot of this diorite now, that marble, and then we also have the clay in there as well. Now the gravel that we have at the base of the cliff, that is for all the fallen rocks. So everything that sort of crumbles away during rainstorms, or maybe even just in the dry, maybe the wind erodes it, something like that. The gravel, like little pieces of rock, would break off, and that's what all this gravel down here is for. So you notice that there's like this little dip in here. So maybe that's where a place of the cliff sort of eroded away. Maybe this is a boulder that came from up here. So that's kind of what you want to keep in mind. So maybe like certain areas, actually like large pieces of rock fell away, and that's kind of what I wanted to do with this, is that this is probably a larger boulder that fell down from here. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're doing terrain, is like what would happen, the erosion patterns, things like that. Now again, this is very basic. There's going to be more erosion in the actual terrain as well. Things like that, it'll definitely look better. We've also added lots of little bushes and things, but we don't really want to go too much more on that. Right now I want to show you specific commands that'll really help you in your building adventures. When you're on the Reforged mod, there's several things that'll really help you. First of all, you're going to need these several tools that we have here. You can grab any pickaxe, you got to have the wooden axe, and you can grab any shovel or any other tool really to do these commands. So for a pickaxe, all you got to do is do slash replace, that stands for replace, R-E-P-L, and then you can put 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, etc, 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 so on. That represents the data of the block. So replace 4 will allow you to replace anything that you right click as gravel, or I'm sorry, cobble. Alright, so then you left click that. So now say you want to turn that to some other texture, you left click the block and then you can right click again. So left click stamples and then right click replaces. It's a really helpful tool, especially when you're working on terrain like this. Another thing that I want to tell you guys is that you can set the biome of your build. Now, a lot of you are probably just going to settle with the base green grass, but there's several different colors of grass and variants using biomes. You guys can look that up for yourself. There's a whole bunch of different grass and biomes and things that you can use. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and show them in a picture right here. These are all the different grass biomes you have. I list each one, show you kind of like what each one is, the color and such. So maybe you can use that as reference for when you're building your own plot or something of that sort. You can reference those biomes and maybe give your build a more specific texture, because it also sometimes changes the color of the grass, the leaves, and everything like that. So that's something I want to show you. And the way you gotta do that is you gotta select from point A to point B to whatever however large the selection you want to be. You gotta select it and you gotta do just one slash, set biome savanna or whatever biome you want, and you press enter, and then what you got to do is log off and log back on, and then that area will be this. It's really annoying that you got to log off, but it doesn't render in when you are in game, which is a really annoying thing, so keep that in mind. Another thing I want to tell you guys is how did I place this grass like this above the stone. It's actually really neat how that works. You just take a brush and you do slash brush sphere 2 is grass, and you're gonna do let's say 5. Okay, so 5, so 2 is grass, and then you do a space, 5 is the size of the brush. Press enter and you're gonna do slash mask, and then you're gonna do the greater than symbol 1. Now 1 is stone specifically. Now say if you have some other materials that you want to go over, you go like comma 2, comma 5, etc, like that, you know, whatever the ID for the block is. So you mask over 1, and then you can just go ahead and it'll just place right over the stone. Now another thing that you guys, something that's going to tie all of this together is you go grab a tool. Let's go ahead and grab a tool really quick. So say the golden axe. All right, so now you want to go slash tool info. All right, so that's going to bind tool info to this axe. Now this is the magic behind this. A lot of you are like, how do I find the IDs for each of these mod blocks? Now you just right click. See, that's 172. That's 1091. That right there is 1252. That one right there is 13. In order to do that, you'd have to do 13. That's the metadata value of that. Things like that. You do that all over, and it really that'll help you. So then whenever you're doing world edit operations, you just put in those numbers, and it allows you to figure out and like place the blocks with world edit. So that's a really helpful thing. Tool info, definitely check that out. And then that's the usable block IDs. So guys, we're going to actually go ahead and now time-lapse this terrain. All of this is going to be finished by the end of the video. We are going to time-lapse it. I'm going to voice over some things and try to give you guys the general idea of what's going on. I don't want the terrain to drag on for much longer, so we're going to go ahead and do that real quick. For me, it's going to take a long time. For you guys, 3 minutes or something. Who knows? We'll see. But anyways, the general idea is we're going to be doing a river along the side, and we're going to be raising the terrain, everything like that, texturing all of this rocks, and we're also going to be bringing it out a little bit. I'm going to do a little, you'll see me doing a little bit of planning for the castle, but I'm going to destroy the planning. I just want to try to match it with the picture that I'm working with, because I don't want to retexture terrain, at least as much as I can, so we're going to have to work that out, and I think it'll be just fine. So yeah, anyways, stay tuned and enjoy the upcoming time-lapse. Let's get started.
A message we will say. The light guides our way from where our father stood with courage. This night falls up ahead. Fires behind burn bright, far behind. We're lost, for the flames don't forget. Our fathers will are dead. Put the light at your back, till your shadow until sunset burns beyond the bay. Stay away. All you feel is pain. Chase the day, broken, weary, lost. Courage will rise, for the flames don't forget. Our fathers will attend. Put the light at your back, till your shadow until sunset burns behind the bay. Children pray, we will see the light of day.
Okay guys, so that's our terrain so far. I'm really happy with how it's turning out. I really like the central plateau portion. I really think that's going to accentuate the manor that's going to be up here soon. I really like how that turned out quite a bit. I wanted to make sure it was a little bit taller, so there has been a little bit of editing since the last bit of the time lapse there, but I have now made it so that it will legit fit the manor. So what we're going to build on top of here is absolutely going to fit. Really excited about this. This is going to look really, really great. So one thing I want to show you guys is these rivers over here. You'll notice that the river slash creek isn't that deep. A lot of people usually, especially in world painter maps and such, usually make these sort of V-shaped rivers and creeks and things. That is not how rivers are. If you've ever been to any river, usually they're more of a U shape, and usually a shallow U. Like I have a river right next to my place, and there's a pretty, it's very shallow. It's like maybe 1.5 meters deep in the middle. So I mean, it's not really that high, and that's what I want to show you guys, is always make sure that whenever you're making rivers, depending on how big they are. Now, if it's a huge river, like when I'm talking about huge river, I'm talking about the width of this plot. That's a big river. Then that would probably go about 10 or 15 blocks, maybe more in the middle, and it would still be that U shape though. So just keep that in mind when you're building any sort of water source. Now, something else I wanted to show you guys is there's these silt deposits here on the inside edges of these bends. So you come around, the stream will come this way and it pushes up against the rock here. And that's why there's like a sheer cliff right there. We're actually going to be working on that more eventually. We'll make that look better, but that's kind of what I want to show you. And so all the sediment that's being brought down this river would be deposited here because the main current of the river would actually be over here against the rock, and then it would just be very light current here on the inside. So that's where there would be like deposits of sand and gravel, things like that. You'll see that I also did that down here where there's another sort of tight bend. And I think that's pretty much all the bends we have. Everything else looks pretty good. You also notice that I have these in the rock. Now this one I'm probably going to edit some more. I'm not quite happy with it yet. But I like this one over here. And I like this one right here. You'll notice that each of these creeks are in shallow depressions. Whenever you see a valley or some sort of dip in the earth, usually the reason that dip is there is because that there was some sort of weathering process that created that dip. And like valleys or anything, usually there's a creek down the middle, etc. That water is what digs away at the earth and creates these depressions and makes it so that you can have these neat little neat little streams coming through. And you always want your streams to reach somewhere, and you always want your ponds to go to a creek. The creeks lead to rivers, the rivers, okay, so streams lead to creeks, creeks lead to rivers, rivers lead to the ocean. So always keep that in mind when you're building stuff. This pond here, it actually leads out this little stream right here, which leads into the creek. But so that's something I really want you guys to keep in mind when you're building terrain is water sources always have an outlet. They always have to have somewhere to go because water flows, right? And it'll just keep filling up until it starts flowing. And so that's a big idea that I want you guys to really take into consideration. Usually any region that is below sea level would typically fill up unless if it's like artificially pumped out, etc. That's something I want you guys to think about. So you'll see that I used a lot of cylinder brushes through this. The cylinder brushes is how we got the very smooth terrain like this. Now obviously there's still some smoothing that needs to be done. I still got to work on these cliff sides a little bit more and stuff like that. But what we're going to do right now is a major thing that is going to really help us. We're going to do / overlay and 2. 2 is grass. So I already made the selection from one corner of the plot to the other, and this is going to completely cover the entire plot. Now I've already set the biome of this plot over to Savannah, so we already have all of the whole plot in the biome that I want it to be. So that's the cool thing about that. Now all of this is going to be that limestone rich, and we've actually been thinking of some lore. Maybe we'll add like a crystal cave underneath this mound, so there's going to be some sort of magical elven presence here, which is actually pretty cool because I was thinking, what if we add in a portion of the lore where this used to be a elven settlement that's long been destroyed, and like maybe the foundations of this manor is built on top of it. So but yeah, so I think that will do it for this portion of the video. I think I'm going to finish up doing the texturing. Now I do have the replay mod now, so we're gonna go ahead and do it with the replay mod versus time-lapsing it from way up above, and I think you guys will enjoy it. So let's get started. So starting out, guys, I changed all of the stone over to the diorite stone. And then what I go through is I go through with a airbrush and start removing some of the grass because we don't want that spotty feel. We want more of the cliff showing through. And then we start adding in textures one by one. For example, right now we're adding in specifically the mossy stone, and then we also add in specifically the light marble stone. Now you use a brush pattern that has percentages. For example, you use 70% of the material you want to use, or 70% of the base material, meaning the diorite, and then you use, like, say 30%. You have 30% between whatever materials you want to add in after that. That way you have that blending going on, not just these massive blobs of materials going in. And as you can see, we've done the same thing. We've used clay, we use gravel, we use the grassy gravel, things like that. We're working on the creek right now. We're adding in little rock formations and things like that. We don't get the whole terrain finished this video, but we do get a lot done, and it really turns out pretty nice. Now we have a fairly good base to work off of. So as you can see, the creek, we add gravel all along the beaches or all along the banks of the creek and everything. So that way that, you know, it's the deposits of silt and rock and everything. So yeah, that's that. Alrighty guys, so I hope you enjoyed this episode. We've gotten a lot done today. I'm really happy with that we at least got the shaping of the terraforming done, and we've gotten the general texturing done. That's something that I was really wanting to get out of the way. So the rest we'll probably do more or less by hand later on, but right now I'm not really worried about it. We'll just come back on that later. So I hope you guys enjoyed and maybe learned something, like when we were going through the terrain. When you texture things, you want to texture the blocks one by one. You do not want to texture everything all at once, and you don't want there to be these very bold blobs. You want to make sure that it's sort of blends in with the stone and the textures around it. Like, you put in a little bit of stone with it, etc., and you mask the stone. You use the percentages, things like that, and it really helps the overall look. So I filled up the creek here. The one thing that I think we could have done better with the creek is if I leveled it. So, like, say if it was 2 blocks higher on one end and then it slowly went down towards the other end, I think that would have really turned out really cool. But overall, I'm pretty happy with it. I think it'll work out just fine. I mean, it doesn't have to be leveled. It just, it is what it is. So I'm pretty happy with it. So next episode, guys, we're going to be working on the manor itself. We're going to start the planning process. In fact, next episode will be the whole planning stage, all in one video, hopefully. So I hope that you guys will be able to watch that and come by when we get that released. Also, the next video will be far more quality than this one. This one's 30 FPS, and the next one will be 60 FPS. Also, you can already notice that the mic is much better. Mid-episode, I got my new mic, and also I got new editing software, so things are much more quality now. So, like I said, next episode, things are going to look much, much nicer. And, of course, the replay mod now. So things are just really looking up now. So I will see you guys on the next one. Don't forget that I have a Facebook and a Twitter you can follow me on. Definitely keep up to date with you guys over there. So go check me out. I have a Patreon. I definitely appreciate any support any of you are able to provide if you feel compelled to. And I hope to see you guys on the next episode. Till then, bye-bye.